Welcome to our next PMO Leader Conference session. I'm Jo, one of your hosts, and we have got a fantastic session for you now with Lloyd Skinner and Dr. Nick Dacre, who are going to talk to us about AI and the future for project management, which very, very topical at the moment. Certainly something we're seeing across the news and in all of our careers, I think. So during this session, you've got the option to chat on the right-hand side of the screen. So let us know you're there. Let us know where you're joining from. And you'll also see a question and answer session as well. Hi, Indu. You'll be able to pop your questions in there and we will pick up on as many of those as we can at the end. And don't forget to share your feedback online as well. Use the hashtag TPL conference and we'll get a bit of buzz going online. So after the session, you've also got the opportunity to visit our sponsors in the booths and plenty of networking opportunities too. You'll certainly be able to talk to Lloyd on one of our networking tables. Dr. Dacre will try and join as well if he can. But that's enough waffling from me. Let's hand over to our fantastic speakers today. We have Lloyd Skinner joining us, who is CEO of Greyfly AI. He's got 25 years of experience in this world, and the last 4 of those he spent developing AI in project management solutions. So this man is going to help us stop doing a lot of the boring work that we don't enjoy and make things a little bit more fun for us. So I think we can all look forward to that. And I keep calling you Dr. Nick, I apologise, Dr. Dacre is Associate Professor of Project Management and Director of Advanced Project Management Research at the University of Southampton. So one of our fantastic academics who's progressing this field as well as PMOs professionalising and has done over the last few years. So I'm going to hand over to you both and enjoy the show, everybody.
Thank you, Jo, and welcome everybody. So the way we're going to set this up is Nick is going to introduce the whole subject of AI and project management, and then he's going to hand over to me to look at some practical case studies. So over to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's an absolute pleasure to be here to join everyone today. Thank you, obviously, for taking the time to join us on this session, which I think is an incredibly important topic. And as project professionals, regardless of where we are in our career, this innovative technology, this innovative kind of system, this process, this application, and this toolkit, whatever we want to call it, is certainly having a profound effect on the project profession and beyond. So really what I'm here to discuss today is, can we integrate artificial intelligence into project management practice? And what I'd like to do is really look at the theme of bridging the gap between AI and effective project delivery. So please do make sure that you've got plenty of questions for myself and Lloyd. As Lloyd mentioned, we're both going to present our respective lenses in terms of how we view this innovation and how we view it in terms of embedding itself across the project life cycle. I'm going to come from it as an academic. I'm going to come from it from a slightly more research based lens. And so I want to kind of introduce the topic from a theoretical perspective, from a conceptual perspective, and then towards the latter stages of the presentation, what I'd like to do, if you indulge me, is to show you some of the research that we've actually undertaken, myself and the rest of the team at APRM, which is the Advanced Project Management Research Centre here at the University of Southampton, that we've taken directly with project professionals, so a range of different project managers, and specifically one particular case study where we did some research around risk in projects and risk mitigation and risk management in projects. So those are the kind of themes that I'd like to explore with you as a community. But also, as I said earlier, I'm really, really interested in your feedback in terms of your questions so that we can generate, as Jo said, so that we can push the art of knowledge in this particular field, and that we can obviously push the boundaries of what we're trying to achieve as effective project managers. So as Jo said, a quick introduction just to myself, really, so that you get an idea, the context of who I am and what my background is and how I got to this particular stage of research and interest. So I'm the director of the Advanced Project Management Research Centre here at the University of Southampton. We have a whole range of different themes that we explore with a team of senior academics, but we like to engage with enterprise quite regularly. And we also have obviously doctoral research who join that team. I have the pleasure of being the Vice Chair of the British Academy of Management, BAMPREX. So we have a community of project professionals that largely tends to be academic focused, where we discuss obviously our research. And I'm also a fellow of the Association for Project Management, so a FAPM, as the acronym goes, FAPM. In terms of my research interests and the things that I tend to focus on, and the areas I tend to navigate through and engage with different organizations, whether it's conglomerates, whether it's large multinationals, or whether it's local startups in an incubation center, for example. So I'm particularly interested in the aspects of complex project management. No doubt many of us have debated this idea with different priorities over time in terms of like what is actually complex and what is the difference between complicated. But also the three areas that underpin that is innovation, technology, and sustainability. And that's how I came around to this area of AI in project management. In terms of the relevance of what I'm going to present today, I recently, myself and the rest of the team undertook three reports, three particular areas of research. One of them was looking at dynamic conditions for project success, which was 12 tenets of project success going beyond the iron triangle. The other one that we were working quite closely with a range of different organizations was understanding agile and project management. And the one that we're here to discuss today really is some commissioned research that we did on AI in project management. So the rationale and aim really of the actual research that we undertook when we were commissioned to specifically look at artificial intelligence in project management was really to get an understanding of how professionals view the current state of AI in project management. And I think one of the challenges that we have as a community, and one of the things that we learned along this particular path and journey, is some people are more advanced, or some organizations are, I'd say, more maturity or high maturity level in terms of embedding or realizing the applications of AI in project management. And this is where kind of Lloyd will come in to strengthen these particular points. So in typical academic style, we really wanted to create a strong foundation for this particular research. There is a lot of veneer out in the public domain in terms of what is AI, artificial intelligence, and a whole range of different domains and fields. And in our case, we really wanted to embed this in research. So we went back to the basics. We went back to the foundational elements, which is we did a deep dive or a meta-analysis of project management literature and what we could uncover in terms of the relationship between AI. And then ensuing that, it framed our particular knowledge. So we undertook 16 iterative semi-structured interviews with essentially project professionals across a whole range of different areas. And this enabled us really to compare and contrast what we'd learned from legacy or seminal papers in terms of academic research going back quite a few decades. And one of the things that really struck us is this idea of these AI winters and these AI summers. And actually, AI in project management wasn't a particularly new thing. It had been around for some time, but it was always that kind of juxtaposition as to where the technology lies and how the ambition was never realized with the level of technology. And one of the arguments I'll make a little bit later on is essentially how we are getting to a point where that marriage is solidifying. So we were able to then follow that through once we were able to ascertain what our particular specific questions and what we wanted to look at, which was essentially how, what steps could a project professional or an organization take to embed AI or to use AI, perhaps to overcome some of the pain points in terms of the PLC, the project lifecycle. So we surveyed 280 participants globally, project professionals, and we obviously captured their levels of maturity, their levels of seniority, their years as project professionals, and so on and so forth. And we were able to generate this particular report. So when we started with the report, the first thing that we wanted to do was really establish, well, what do we actually mean by artificial intelligence? If I speak to a number of different colleagues, As you can imagine, in academia, you've got 3 colleagues and 6 different opinions on what artificial intelligence actually is. So we wanted to really start off with what is the definition, or how can we define AI in a project management context. So we went back to the work of Professor Naomi Brooks, and Professor Naomi Brooks was a professor at prior to retirement. She was a professor in complex project management at the University of Warwick. And she did some research around this prior to her retirement. And if you indulge me, so the definition from Naomi was artificial intelligence in project management refers to the study of intelligent agents. And we tried to scratch beneath the surface on that. Like, okay, well, what are these autonomous agents? Well, autonomous non-human entities that can take in information from their environment and act upon it in order to achieve their goals. Intelligent agents need to have mastered machine learning and predictive data analytics. And the reason I've got the picture there of McCarthy on the screen, really, McCarthy, in my view, was one of the seminal people who really started the movement of AI, of artificial intelligence. In fact, he coined really the particular term at the Dartmouth conference back in the early 70s, when I'm not saying that he was the only individual involved in that particular process. Of course, there were, Turing and other people who were involved in that, but he was certainly a seminal individual. So we defined essentially AI as an autonomous agent, something that can learn from its environment and then can use historical data to make predictive suggestions or predictions. And how accurate they are is one of the conversations we can have. I also included a quote from Bill Gates here, which I thought was quite apt. We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. So going back to November of 2022, when OpenAI made ChatGPT available on a global basis via their website, it was interesting to think about what the changes have been over the last 12 months during that period, or 11 months during that period, and what we anticipated in terms of the changes over these last 11 months, and what will the changes be over the next 2 years. So AI technologies, as I've said, have been around for quite a while, and in some form or another. And there have been things like, so some of the more senior members of the community here will actually remember expert systems, and probably we still to some degree use expert systems in our everyday practice. And we also looked at it from the perspective of machine learning. So machine learning suitable for prediction tasks and identify patterns and relationships in large data sets and large language models, which I think is the one that really has captured people's imagination. LLMs have had a fundamental shift, or certainly an absolute impact on our everyday kind of activities and engagements. And LLMs have really come on leaps and bounds since November of 2022, when ChatGPT brought it out to the public domain via their websites. If I would have had an AI conversation a couple of years before with my wife or some colleagues at work or colleagues in the industry, it felt very intangible at that particular point. But actually, LLMs have really made this into a increasingly relevant topic, and I think it's something that, as project professionals, we need to be aware of. A couple of stats here as well, in terms of just reflecting or echoing the popularity of AI and how long each of these kind of 3 platforms took to engage up to 100 million users. So Netflix, you've probably seen these statistics before, but Netflix, to get to 100 million users took them 10 years. Facebook only took 4.5 years. And actually OpenAI and ChatGPT took as little as 2 months to generate 100 million users, which is really interesting in terms of just providing some insights into the popularity of it. So as I said earlier, one of the things I'm quite interested in is this concept of complex project management. So we really pushed for our research. So remember, we did obviously the literature review, we did the semi-structured interviews, and then we did the survey with the 280 respondents to try and really uncover fundamental understanding of AI in project management. and to find out whether it was just vaporware or whether there were some tangible aspects to it. And I'm pleased to report there are obviously quite a useful number of elements around that. So one of the things that we uncovered is that 96% of the project professionals we surveyed as part of our research believe that complex projects are more likely to benefit from AI. So we didn't want to really just look at, okay, what we're going to do is just use artificial intelligence in projects, but so what? What is the point? We wanted to understand, like, at which particular point or which particular project it would be the most useful, the most effective, because the barriers to entry, although they have lowered quite considerably in terms of engaging with AI, as I said, you know, ChatGPT is one of the perfect examples of loading up a website and just being able to access it and type something in. However, when we want to use it in an effective way in our particular project, we need to decide as a community at which particular point am I going to use this in the project itself. In what type of project would AI be more suitable? So as I said, 96% of the project professionals we surveyed said actually they could really see some use in AI in project management in the more complex orientated type of projects. And I think to some degree that particularly makes sense, because the more complex a project is, the high level of competing priorities I have as a project professional to actually deal with, the larger the team, the more diverse the resources, and so on and so forth. So it's almost, one quote that one interviewee mentioned was, you know, AI gives me the opportunity to increase my bandwidth. And I thought that was actually a really good way of looking at this technology. And it really goes to the tone of, is AI going to replace my profession? Is it going to replace my job? And most of the respondents or interviewees that we spoke to had this kind of sense of, you know, there's too much for me to do and I don't have enough capacity. If AI can release some of that and help me in my profession, then that would be a fantastic particular tool. So we used a theory called TAM, Technology Acceptance Model, in terms of identifying a couple of things. And you might be familiar with TAM anyway. It's a very well established theory. We wanted to look at the perceived usefulness of AI in project management and how easy it is to actually use, so the easiest for use. So our findings indicate that perceived usefulness of AI is really, really high in complex projects. So 80% of projects fail to meet their planned objective. We as a community have probably come across a range of different types of these sort of statistics where we talk about failure rates in projects. In my personal academic view is obviously, as project managers, we've got a duty to try and mitigate those failure rates as much as possible, regardless of what toolkit, regardless of what theory, concept, or experience I'm using. I'm always aiming to try and obviously mitigate potential project failure. I'm much more interested in obviously project benefits and benefit realization and positive outcomes and those types of things. So the APM Commission worked back, I think it was in 2012, forgive me if I've got the date slightly wrong, but 80% of projects failed to meet their planned objectives. And when we go to mega projects, so in value of in excess of $1 billion, then it can be as high as 90% failure. So one of the arguments we wanted to make was, the more complex a project can be, therefore the more useful AI is going to be. And what we would like to see over a period of time is how artificial intelligence can obviously address those particular failure rates. But one of the issues that we have with AI is the old adage of garbage in and garbage out, the kind of data. So remember what I said about autonomous agents and machine learning, being able to identify historical data and make predictive, so useful predictive useful predictions. But if the data that we have going in is of a poor quality, or is in such a way that it's flawed, let's say, then the challenge we have as a community of project professionals is also what's going to be the accuracy of the data that I'm getting out. So 76% of our respondents also said that they are very likely to use AI to analyze large volumes of data in complex projects to effectively improve decision making. And I think that's a really useful tool. And LLMs have proven themselves over time to be quite useful at this. So as I said earlier, you know, in terms of predictive analytics and historical data, there's a marriage of different ideas and concepts there that kind of come together to be able to actually enhance our project practice through the use of AI. And LLMs and AI have been really kind of useful at analyzing past project data and large volumes of data. And the way we see it as a team is that it can potentially enhance team collaboration tools. So effectively enabling more effective communication between team members, real-time updates as we're going through the project lifecycle, transparency across all members as well during planning. And I want to get onto that in terms of opportunities and challenges of actually utilizing AI in project management. So one of the things that we established is that at that particular point in time with the research, is 72% of our respondents said that AI will change the role of project managers. Now, I think a more interesting question around that is, which is a subsequent piece of research, really. It's great. So we've got a sense of how AI, so we've got a sense that AI is possibly going to change the role of project managers. And it recorded as 72%. I would be interested to find out what that percentage would be in this particular room, for example, like whether that's going to be a much higher level of respondents that think actually maybe, you know, up to 88% or 93% of our community think that AI will change the role of project managers. But as I said earlier, one of the more interesting questions for me is how. In what way will it change it? What is it actually going to do to the profession? And so a couple of things it can enhance, certainly it can enhance decision making in terms of our processes. Remember that quote we had earlier, which is, you know, improving my bandwidth or releasing some capacity and helping me make decisions based on large volumes of data or project predictions, for example. But one of the things that we also uncovered was this idea of process paralysis. So process paralysis in the project profession is, for example, when I mentioned earlier, competing priorities. So as a human being, let's say, we've got varying capacities through bounded rationality of making predictions or being able to actually engage with large volumes of data or large volumes of decisions at once. On the whole, it can be as low as 3 or 7 points of data that we can actually deal with. I'm sure some of you in the room will combat that and say, oh, actually, you know, I'm very good. I can do 22, whatever it may be. But actually, if AI can alleviate some of that data that comes to us in terms of, so it can help to combat process paralysis, where we essentially we become overwhelmed with the decision making process we have to come to. I'll finish on this, which is essentially a piece of research we did, and we wanted to do a quick investigation into you know, risk management. And so we used the ISO 3100 international standard for risk management across all sectors and organization. And we effectively gave a group of experts. So we delivered a focus group for a 5-point Likert scale, and we gave them a scenario of a project. And we asked them to look at potential risks and how they would mitigate those risks across the project. And then we tied into OpenAI's API, and we gave it the same scenario. And we said, look, here's a project scenario. Effectively, what are the potential risks and how would you mitigate those? And it was really, really interesting. And as I said, I'll finish on this. Is the research was incredibly interesting because it gave us an insight in terms of what we know from project professionals who are very good at doing their job and what we know from AI. And the indications from the findings from our research in terms of risk management indicated that the project professionals were incredibly good at identifying the potential risks in a given project scenario. AI, not so much. It hallucinated quite frequently and wasn't very good at doing that particular aspect of it, which is really quite interesting. But where there's a contrast is ChatGPT or OpenAI's API in this particular case was actually surprisingly good at giving advice on how to mitigate or deal with potential risks in the project. Very, very good. Not so good at identifying them. Remember, this was ChatGPT, not a trained model, but actually very, very good at giving advice on how to deal with potential risks. So on that point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I think this is a timely opportunity for me to essentially hand over to my colleague, Lloyd.
Thank you, Nick. I'll just load my screen quickly. Very interesting that point there about ChatGPT and its reliableness. I think the key there for me is mixing some of that knowledge with perhaps organizational specific knowledge as well. So welcome everybody. I'm Lloyd Skinner. I'm as we said earlier, I'm the CEO of Greyfly.ai. My background is in large scale project and program management. So for my sins, I've been responsible for multi-year, multi-million pound transformation projects where I was the overall person responsible on the customer side. So I'd have technology, property, business change, PMO reporting into me. I just finished off a very large project, and some 4 or 5 years ago, I went on I did a master's in information systems, and I did a post 25-year anniversary, and that evening I got talking to my now co-founder about our experiences around projects. She'd gone off and worked for the big 4 management consultancy companies in an insurance kind of audit role, and we were saying that the technology that we'd been taught on that course hadn't really been applied to project management at that time. You know, cloud compute, big data, AI, as it were. So out of the back of that, you know, our vision was, how do you apply AI to project management? So we've been working on this product now for some 4 years about how do you apply AI, and our flagship product is something called Intelligent Project Prediction. And basically that uses AI to provide executives with insights around the likely outcome of projects to increase project success. Now this deck starts off very high level, but I'm going to get to show you some stuff very quickly as well. So as Nick sort of said, you know, projects, wouldn't they be great if they succeeded first time every time? It would allow us to focus on, you know, some of the big questions that we have as humans. I don't know, net zero or resolving cancer. Now unfortunately that's not the case. Projects don't deliver to plan or budget or release the benefits, and you know, I've pulled out a PMI stats. There's lots and lots of stats about that, and when a project's underway, it's really hard to course correct it, to bring it back on track, you know, if contracts are placed or you know, the first spades in the ground. And when it comes to data around projects, it's often held in lots of disparate systems, and the quality may need to be improved. So we're trying to attack that problem, and as we all know, these days it's about coming in on budget, on time, not necessarily over or under. It's more about being insightful, exactly where you're going to land. So this tool that we've built, the first thing I want to say is that it's aimed at executives. So the point about executives, you know, those people that might look across a portfolio of projects or be responsible for a large mega project as well, is that they tend to be short of time, and they want to know where to point their you know, guns, as it were, in terms of where to focus their time. And by that, I don't necessarily mean which projects are being reported as under or over budget or late or early. What we've created here is a system that predicts the outcome of a project in terms of budget, in terms of schedule, and compares it to what's been reported. So if I may, I'll just give you a basic example. Let's say I'm based down in Bristol, so projects in the southwest of England using technology supplier one. If you look at your historical performance, those projects are always late or over budget. The system is going to recognize a live project and apply that same insight to say perhaps that projects at risk as well. Now the thing there is, I've given a very basic example as to feature matching, feature recognition, and of course there are a lot more features associated with a project, and projects are also dynamic in their nature. You know, so on a monthly basis you need to update those type of insights. Now, Also, in terms of that feature recognition, if you can imagine, not only can you apply that to projects in delivery, but you can apply that same type of technology to projects not yet started. So, if you're proposing a project out of the south of west of England with technology supplier one, then perhaps, you need to look at the prediction compared to what is being proposed. So that's what we've been working on, is creating primarily a highly accurate prediction system. But we've also gone beyond that. So if I pull on those features, what we also do is we recognize what the driving reasons are that are creating that prediction. And we look at those both at an individual project level, but also we then sum those up to look across the portfolio. So if it's always projects in the southwest of England, what are we going to do as a project professional body to address that challenge? Now, the motivations behind this system, I've mentioned on the left-hand side here about overspending or overrunning projects and the predictions. I've mentioned about the recurrent delivery issues, but also, what we're trying to tie in here is overstretched resources. So in terms of those tech suppliers or anybody in your supply chain, if that company is involved in a project, is the project more or less likely to succeed? And of course, you can also start applying that to individuals as well. So looking at that from a capability point of view. Now, the last bit is we take a top-down view of the data that you're trying to identify. Obviously, that has the benefit that you're more likely to have the data points around a historical set of projects. But it also means that you can look at different project types so that you're more likely to be able to look across a portfolio of projects. Now, this whole point of data, when it comes to predictive analytics and machine learning, we have to learn from the existing data. And it's the biggest single technical barrier to entry that we've found. And therefore, we spend a lot of effort in terms of working out how to understand and how to move a data maturity forward with an organization. But in its own right, that is a change management piece. It might mean, to obtain the data, you need to change the processes, which means you need to change the people as well. So when we undertake an engagement with a customer, that's the first thing we do, is we undertake a data maturity assessment curve. Data maturity assessment, to benchmark a customer's existing data. So we work out what project data exists, what systems it exists within. I've pulled out a few examples there. There's about 150 PPM tools on the marketplace at this moment in time. We're completely system agnostic, so we'll plug into any tool and work out what we can do with that data, work out how mature that data is. And the type of data that we're looking for falls into 4 categories: schedule data, finance data, and resource data. So if I pick on finance as the example, we're looking for things like the original budget, the current budget, the spend to date, the forecast to complete. Similarly, on the schedule, we're looking for the baseline go live and the forecast go live. So that benchmarking exercise has the benefit to the customer that you'll be able to work out exactly how mature your data is. But we also make recommendations as to how to improve your data and how to improve your processes to enhance your data. From our point of view, it allows us to take our vanilla product and work out how we're going to configure it for your particular organization. So what is your enterprise data model? How are we going to seamlessly move the data around from your environment to our cloud environment? But more importantly, it allows us, once we've moved that data, it allows us to train the machine learning models that we use for prediction. We run about 6 different machine learning models, and the system picks off the machine learning model which is the most accurate. What do I mean by accurate? what we do is we compare the prediction to what actually happens on a project, and the delta is our measurement of accuracy. We then have to play that back in a nice, smooth, really beautiful UX kind of way, so that, you know, those users for the systems, the executives, can see, you know, instantly what insights are being proposed. And really that's where we'd focused most of our time in our early days, to create a highly accurate prediction system. Now what we found is that it becomes you know, the so what question. How do you embed that within the workflows of an organization? So for example, if you're talking about projects in delivery, how do you embed prediction within progress reporting, gate reviews, assurance reviews? Or if you're in projects not yet started, how do you embed it within, you know, the decision or the approval process to move that project forward? What's being proposed is X. What is the prediction system telling me? Now that's so what. I'll just build on this a little bit more. This is actually real data. So if you can imagine, with this particular customer, they're overspending against their original budgets by 19%. We're predicting 96% accuracy right at the start of the project with this customer. That means that perhaps if you know what the likely outcome of the project is at the beginning, you can undertake a series of interventions to unlock some savings. So 96 times 19, potentially 18%. For those that aren't aware, there's a piece of research called the McLeamy curve, which basically says change control costs you less at the start of a project. Now I'm going to just try and play this. Oh, I was going to try and play this, but it's not letting me play. So I'm going to move on in the interest of time. Let me show you how the system works a little bit. So I've jumped onto the dashboard here. So this is the home screen. This is the basic product that we've created. You've got a ticker tape across the top that tells you about the portfolio. So you can see in this example, there's 11 of 50 projects. We're comparing to the original baseline rather than the latest agreed baseline. We're looking at open projects with good data. And you can see we're predicting accuracy of 72%. Really important to have that front and center. Go back to that change management piece. As you can imagine, we don't want to be supplying predictions at a low confidence. The resistance to the outcomes would be great. But then we compare the baseline to what's being reported versus what's being predicted, and instantly you're drawn to the red status of the predictions. And then on the right hand side you can see the features that are driving those predictions. So if I then drill down, you want to know more about those particular red projects. You want to compare those to what's being reported, but also around those red projects you can see the features on the left hand side there that are driving those outcomes. And you can switch this between whichever dimensions of data. So it's defaulted on finance, but obviously you could look at this from a schedule point of view as well. Similarly, this point about can you do better in the future? So this whole point about transforming project capability, not just having what is the likely outcome of a project, but how do I improve the future? Well, we have this concept of those features. So if you remember my example earlier, projects in the southwest of England, southwest would be a geographical region. So if that's a consistent challenge, how do we address that? So you can see we do a series of weightings around those features, as it were. Last of all, there's also a different dimension. So maybe in this particular example, you can see actually all projects have schedule risks, but only some have higher financial risks. So again, you can start drilling into these type of projects in their own right. So that was a rapid introduction to what we've been doing about IPP. Just before I finish, I just want to talk to you about some of our more recent developments, tied completely into Nick's point about generative AI and LLMs. What we're actually doing now, and I'm so excited about this really, is unlocking project lessons learned. So as we all know, lessons tend to be shelfware. What we've done with lessons is we've matched them via features to completed projects so that we can then overlay those lessons with the right lessons to the right live projects. We've then used generative AI to summarize those lessons and to identify the duplicates so that we can remove those. We've then also used a mix of both a client's data set and available OpenAI data sets to propose the mitigations for those lessons as well. And of course, I'm talking about lessons there, but I could be talking about risks. We're then serving all of that knowledge up along with predictions to the pre-approval stage. So whether you're an organization that is bidding for work or whether they're internal projects, just imagine the power of unlocking those right lessons for the right types of projects. So in summary, we've now got highly accurate predictions that we've been working on. They do enable the unlocking of savings. However, this is a transformation journey. This is a different way of working, and that needs the change management journey sitting alongside it. And you know, again, just echoing Nick's points about the importance of data. So getting your data better is really, really important. And as I just touched on there, we've got some exciting developments coming through as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. I think we've got time now for a few questions from the audience.
Do, and thank you both very much. That's absolutely fascinating. And what I love is how what we're really talking about here is true AI. We're not just talking about more data, it's the intelligence behind that data and how we can use it and capitalize on it, which is just fantastic. And it's not what we've seen in the past. It's one new shiny tool. It's using everything we already have, but just making it easier and better and more accessible. So it makes me very excited, as you can tell. But anyway, never mind all that. Let's get on to the questions. We've had a few. First one from Indu, asking how it's going to impact the future of project management, given that, you know, it's human beings that make a lot of these decisions. How would you answer that?
I'll start and then hand over to Nick. So in terms of the systems we build, we have this principle that we call guided analysis. In other words, we try and work out in a efficient and effective way where the human should be pointing to. So if you imagine more rapidly saying, these are the likely priorities for the project, this is the most likely outcome of the project. So the human remains in the loop, as it were, but hopefully you augment the human with greater knowledge more rapidly so that the human can focus on, you know, dare I say it, more humanistic challenges such as change management, influencing skills, softer skills, and we try and take some of that, you know, more cumbersome burden of the administration away. Nick, I don't know what your thoughts are on that question.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for the question. I think it's an absolutely key question, and it's not one that I ever forget personally. And I think it's really important. People are the priority. And given any project, the project outcomes, the project practice, the project process, are all reliant on the key people you have, on the team itself, your stakeholders, people who are impacted or have an effect or affected by the actual project itself. So I think that's really something that we need to be cognizant of. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's an important point to raise. In terms of, so I think that the question is broken down into prioritization, managing resources, and decision making. So I think we can break the answer down into two areas. Well, first of all, let's see where it takes us. Let's see where the next 12 months. We've had 11 months of ChatGPT, and that's had an impact on kind of a wider consciousness. But let's see how it actually embeds itself in terms of project management. let me see if I can address all three of your points. So prioritization, the one for me, as I've mentioned earlier, is really around risk assessment or risk management. And we've seen some inroads around that. And obviously with platforms such as what Lloyd has just presented and predictions, I think those are really interesting areas that are going to develop over time and get increasingly more accurate. And we are going to, as project professionals, going to rely on those much more than we have done in the past in terms. So I think, AI and algorithms are going to get much more accurate in terms of forecasting potential risks and adjusting the priorities of taking certain risks or certain tasks and how to mitigate those risks effectively. One of the things that we're seeing in managing resources, and I hope this answers your question, is actually something that maybe we don't think about enough, which is this idea of skill matching. So one of the problems we have in terms of projects and getting the ad hoc team involved in our particular projects is how much impact or how much ability do we have to actually select the right people for the right post. And sometimes we fall into, so I see this a lot in project professionals. They'll always select the same people that they've worked with before, not necessarily the best skills for the project, but it's that sense of comfort. Like, oh, I've worked with this person before, I've worked with this team member before, I've worked with this particular organization before, and it was okay. And so I know what I'm getting. So I think AI is going to really help in terms of this idea of skill matching, in terms of helping us to analyze the skill set of particular team members or organizations, and help us to make the decisions in terms of allocating those tasks that are best suited to those particular individuals and their skills. And I really genuinely think it's going to help us to improve the project outcomes and the benefits.
I'm just going to come in there, Nick, if I may, and I totally concur about the skills matching. I think that will happen. However, what I would say is our experience is that around resources, it's where the data is the weakest. Certainly my experience is, and maybe there is some in the audience here that would contradict me, but resource planning, resource management, and dare I say it, resource forecasting is the weakest in an organization. Yes, we might have time sheeting, but very rarely is there a high quality, consistent resource plans. And certainly on the forecasting side, I don't see some of that. So I actually think where the drive will be matching things like project management training companies with the reality of what's happening within a client organization, and that in its own right driving very bespoke capability plans. But for me, it's almost like one of the harder questions, because generally we have schedule and finance data.
So, and then answering the third question, which was around decision making. Now, I've already in my presentation spoken about predictive analytics. So let's try and think about something slightly different. I think AI as a technology or as an innovation has really got an ability to help us in terms of real-time monitoring, in terms of decision making. So in a decision making process, what we can tend to see is a slight delay. So a decision has to be made, and then there's a delay, regardless of the urgency of that particular decision that needs to be made. And that delay can be quite a costly endeavor for our project, and it actually can lead to some increased pain points. And I think that AI, in terms of decision making around that, as well as predictive analytics, can really help with real-time monitoring to kind of minimize that delay. So monitoring the project activities in real time and allowing us as project professionals to make those immediate decision making in responses to what is often unexpected events. So I think those are the three key areas, and I hope that answers your question.
I have to give a little ditty because it always brings a smile to my face. Recently, we did analysis of a load of progress reports. So it was actually about 16,000 progress reports in terms of could you infer the sentiment of the progress report, align that to the outcome of the actual project, and this was across historical projects, by the way. So the project manager reports the progress in a digital format, but a handwritten format of the progress. And funnily enough, what we found was that project managers were completely optimistic in terms of the likely success or otherwise of their projects. So that was one really interesting thing in terms of just bringing that back into resource management and improving individual capability, you know, that integrity, that honesty of writing reports. The other bit that brought a bigger smile to my face was that we found about 45% of the project managers had just cut and pasted their project reports from one month to the next. So again, just as a little side bit there, just because I noticed somebody was asking about, you know, bespoke capability development requirements. So just a little bit of insight there.
We do love a cut and paste status report.
Yeah,
nothing's changed in the last month. It's absolutely fine. All we need to do is change the date at the top of our PowerPoint slide. Hopefully that is very much the old world now. So we've got a load more questions because there's so much interest in this topic, but unfortunately time means that what we're going to need to do is wrap up. However, people can actually speak to you directly, can't they? And I know you're going to hang around for a little bit over on the networking tables. For those in the audience, you'll see in the networking area, we've got a range of tables and you'll see the name of this session on there. And I think Lloyd's name is there too. If you want to head on over there, you'll be able to speak to our brilliant speakers in person, ask their questions, because we've got some great questions in there about security, about data sharing, about how this helps us to regionalize our global nature. Carsten's asked a great question. Sorry, Carsten Florian's asked a great question too in the chat there about, you know, how much of this is hype? How's it really going to materialize into something helpful? Because I think we're all seeing that too whenever there's a buzzword. But because we could talk about it all day, and we can't, because we need to go on to talk about a load of other sessions today, including resource management, which gives us all a headache. Although I'd argue that benefits management and realization is probably parallel with that in terms of poor data. We're going to wrap up here. I'm going to say a massive thank you very much for giving us your time and your expertise today. I'll let the audience pick up with you. And for everybody out there, you can rewatch this session. You can also watch the other sessions by clicking on the schedule and playing the replays after we've wrapped up. And we'll see you all ready for the next session. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you for all the questions and participation. Thank you, Joe. Thank you.